kind of stopped dancing salsa completely.
The social dancing has more of a communication directly with your partner.
I'm an iPod. I do one thing. I dance bachata. People feel an entitlement that I don't think should exist. I don't think everybody should dance with everyone. I just don't.
I think the point of a social dance is to be open, at least, to considering dancing with whoever. But
Me ha pasado que he bailado con personas y me han lastimado. If you're someone who immediately grab me and like start touching me like my lower back or getting too close and I don't see that you're doing any technique, like no thank you, I'm not interested.
I wouldn't feel comfortable with that. I would probably disengage too. Watch him with the next follower. 8 moves. Next follower. 8 moves.
why you gotta call us out like that, Joe?
8 moves. 8 moves. We all have it. Yeah. And
No, this man's telling lies over here. Hey, right on. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Why We Move podcast. I'm your host, Ricardo. I'm here with the wonderful Joe and Yatz from Sensual City. These guys are experts in what they do. They are lovely people. They're down to earth, just amazing folks. And I'm very excited to have you guys on the podcast.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Gracias.
Real quick, just a quick disclaimer, y'all. We're going to be speaking in Spanglish. So for the Spanish speakers, es algo para ti. For the English speakers, put on the subtitles maybe, or both. But anyways, so thank you guys for showing up. I really appreciate your time here. And I'm very excited for this podcast. I'm ready to pick your guys' brain. I like that you guys came branded. I love it, the Central City. And thank you guys so much for the shirt. Yo,
Yep.
Check this out, y'all. They gave me a Central City shirt. This is cool.
Yeah.
So I appreciate it. I will definitely be rocking this when I go out dancing. But let's go right into it. So again, the name of the podcast is Why We Move. And it's centered around social dancers and telling their stories of their journeys along the way, highlighting folks who are instructors, DJs, organizers, performers, and every other kind of person that's doing stuff on and off the dance floor. And of course, I wanted to invite y'all because I think you have a wonderful story. So I want to start the podcast, this episode off with the main question, and anybody can start, is why do you move, Joe and Yatz?
I move because dance makes me happy. It brings me joy to move. I started dancing in college, and I started with a ballet class that a friend invited me to.
Mm-hmm.
And she stopped going to the class, and I kept going because I fell in love with dancing ever since. I haven't stopped since then.
Awesome. Thank you to your friend, right? Because now you're here with us. That's amazing. What about you, Joe?
So just to bolster this point, like when we go social dancing, for example, I literally pause and I'll watch her because she legit looks so happy. It doesn't matter in general who the leader is, but her face just lights up. It's kind of like the way you might see like me with a puppy or something, and her face just lights up. And then like you have to just stop and pause and just appreciate like that like an activity can bring a human being so much happiness. Just the sheer act of doing it, like she'll just dance on her own in like the kitchen or whatever. For me, it's a little bit more of a challenging answer because it's not because I love dancing. It's not because I love moving. I think it's because I got into it, then I got pretty decent at it, and then I see it as a skill that I don't want to let like wash away or go asunder. So I just sort of keep doing it because I'm a bit of a perfectionist. So that's more of my reason, my perfectionism reason for, like there are components of dancing that I don't do very well. Like I don't connect very well. But it's like if you get good at ping pong or tennis, you keep doing it because you just get better at it and you have to keep playing. You can't just let those skills go to shit.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I haven't played ping pong in a minute, and it's been, I used to like get really heavy into it.
Right.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Thank you guys for sharing. So I want to dive into your journey of social dance. I think, Yatz, you kind of went into it a little bit with ballet, and I'm curious, well, first of all, let's start with how long have you guys been dancing? Professionally, unprofessionally, just the moment, or I think you just started going out social dancing?
For me, has been a long time, like over 10 years. And I started by taking classes of ballet, modern. Then I came to the U.S., studied dance in college, and I did a master's in dance movement therapy. And then I just went out one time with friends and discovered bachata, and I saw people body rolling, and I was like, I want to learn how to do that. So I that's how I started. And that happened probably 5 years ago with the bachata.
What about you, Joe?
So I don't consider myself a professional. I'm very much an amateur dancer, very much. I think there are certain things that have to be true before you can consider yourself like a pro. Like, I don't know, competing or performing for X, Y, Z time period. So, but for me, it started maybe a little bit more than 10 years ago. And it started with salsa for a couple of years, very, very off and on, like literally a couple of lessons over a multi-year period. And then I discovered bachata at the Philadelphia Bachata Festival 2015. It was like 9 years ago. And that's when I discovered bachata and I saw the dancing that was happening there. And I thought, this is more my vibe. You know, like the EDM type beats, it was just different from the salsa stuff. And I realized that if I don't enjoy listening to the music, like in the car or somewhere else or while you're jogging, then I don't want to dance to it. So I kind of stopped dancing salsa completely. But I enjoy bachata. And back then I got into these remix guys. Then I got into the more traditional stuff. I kind of went backwards, but I still appreciate the traditional stuff. But initially it was the remix stuff, like the Tronkies and the Soul Trixes. And you know, a lot of these like almost like EDM beats or like pop beats, and then they just drop bongos or whatever. And then I got into that, and then I got into that dancing. Then just traveled everywhere. Like I probably hit every festival in this country from like 2016 to 2018. Then even went international, just sort of like improving and like hearing it, and you know, and even bringing a few events. You know, starting back in like 2016, I started doing events.
Yeah, you guys go way back. Yeah. I've started dancing. It's close to my 9-year mark now. I think I understand what you're saying with the sense of feeling the pull with what you like to dance to, and like if you don't want to listen to it if you don't want to dance to it. And I think for me, music has been a grounding power in that since I've been a kid. Just I remember always feeling like moving my body in a certain way. Whenever I put on headphones and put on the MP3 players, when
Right.
those were a thing, like I found myself like moving, moviendo, like using my body, mi cuerpo también, como like in unison to be able to feel what it is that's going through my ears, and expressing it through whatever I had, with me, which was my body. I know that wave of like the EDM mix of DJ Soltrix and DJ even Manuel Chitro and
Right.
who else? Tronki, like you said. And I think it's interesting because I came from an EDM background too. Like the first kind of big music scene I got into was EDM. I'll go to festivals like in Vegas and in the Pacific Northwest and Seattle and whatnot. And it was a crazy time. But like some of the songs that I heard in bachata and like these bachata remixes were like from these, EDM songs. And I was like, whoa, like I just like combined, two passions of mine into one. And like when I got into dancing, I found myself really expressing how I felt through those EDM songs that were remixes of bachata because I connected with that on another realm. It's interesting. I think it catches a lot of people's attention as well.
Right.
What do you believe sets social dancing apart from other styles of dancing, such as ballet, contemporary, or other kinds of things? Not to throw shade on anything, but just what are the differences?
The social dancing has more of a communication directly with your partner, and it has more of a improvisational playfulness that you may or may not experience necessarily when you go take a class in ballet. Ballet has a lot of structure, and there's more fluidity, I think, in terms of dancing with somebody. For me, that freedom to be able to feel the music and just dance to the music without necessarily thinking about, I need to have like, my steps here or there. Like in ballet, I remember when I was training, like there's a lot of things that you need to kind of be checking constantly to have everything in place and like this step and the other. And when I'm social dancing, I'm not thinking, I'm just feeling the music and just communicating with non-verbally with my partner, with my dance partner, and just enjoying the present moment at that time.
That's beautiful. It takes a lot of conscious energy too, right? It's like apart from the synchronization of your steps and your body, kind of what you said at the end is being present. I think that's a common theme I've realized throughout time with interviewing all these people on this podcast is people like that moment. you know, that when the song turns on and you find your follow or you find your lead, your partner per se, and you commit and agree to spending that song, however long it is, 2 minutes to 7 minutes, you know, connecting with that person. I think that's a very beautiful thing. I think I see that in both of you when you dance. Like you guys are very conscientious and present in that moment. So it's really cool to see you guys dancing out like that, and being able to hear from you, you know, through your words.
Yeah, so I have a lot of some polished, some still kind of like unrefined thoughts on connection or social dancing in general, and a lot of experiences over the years. So I can't really distinguish it or whipsaw it against like like these other genres like ballet. I have no idea. So like I'm not a professional dancer. I'm an iPod. I do one thing. I dance bachata. I social dance bachata. You know, I performed once the Daniel and Desiree team with Ferocity like a few years ago. And I was like, oh, did it, done. You know, move on. So in general, I think the word social is kind of like a redundant thing, but it makes sense because you're going out dancing. But a lot of activities are social. You can go to the movies; it's a social activity, except you don't get to sit next to everybody. So for social dancing, for me, I see like I have a few duties. You know, one is to not make my follower feel like shit. Like that's important. Um, that's probably one of my most important duties, and to not become a person that I'm not, like imposing, too creepy. I don't ask people their names even after I'm dancing. I don't do that as a rule. I don't like I barely even say anything afterwards. I just say with a Spanish accent, I say gracias, and then I move on to the next dance. You know, just because I'm trying to keep it at social dancing, just dancing, not hey girl, what like as a rule, I don't do that. You know, and so, but at the same time, I feel like you know, like if you go play tennis, and then like if we were to call it social tennis or social playing, social tennis, whatever, the way they work is they would play with similar levels. Like if you're level 4, you play with a level 4. In general, you don't play with a level 10 or whatever. Like you kind of stay in your levels. And I find that very often in what we're doing, people feel an entitlement that I don't think should exist. I don't think everybody should dance with everyone. I just don't. I think that, especially if you're a follow, almost more exclusively if you're a follow, because there are reasons why follows get invited. They get invited for other reasons other than what followers might be inviting someone for. On those grounds, I think a follower should have free license to say no. So on those grounds, it doesn't become that social anymore because not everyone is entitled to her time or her body. And I'm very, very, very strong on that point. That's why I encourage my followers to be able to say no and to make them comfortable for whatever reason. It could be BO. It could be this guy was rough with you last time. No one is entitled to your time and your body on the dance floor. That's my very strong opinion. For the leaders, though, because there's a power dynamic, the leaders do the majority of invitations. They almost always invite. On those grounds, when a follower invites a leader, I feel always compelled to say yes. It's just evening the playing field because they always get invited and they don't have a choice who invites them. Very often they just sit around waiting to be invited. They feel powerless. So I think they should be able to say no. And I think we shouldn't say no. And I think we should invite as many as we can. You should go level up, level down, whatever you feel comfortable with. But I've just heard it. I've seen it. I've seen like the posts with everyone, oh, everyone should dance with everyone. I disagree. I think you should dance with whoever you feel comfortable with on whatever grounds you have, whether it's safety, it's creepiness, anything. No one should challenge it. So on those grounds, I have kind of just like a bit of an issue with just the term social dancing, whereas it's deemed to be everybody is entitled to everybody at all times. I disagree. I think people should be picky and choosy. And for whatever reason, we need to protect our followers, you know?
Interesting, you know, standpoint. I think I understand. I can empathize with that. I think agree and also agree to disagree in certain aspects. I think like this is why these podcasts exist, right? To speak this out. I think it's interesting because I don't think everybody should dance with everybody if your boundaries are being crossed, or if you're being disrespected, or if you just don't feel like dancing. Like I totally agree that not everybody should just say yes. I think is the main thing to everybody who's out there asking to dance, because somebody can make you uncomfortable. You know, regardless if you're a follower or a lead. Like, because I've had it happen actually last Wednesday. I was out in Portland. yeah, last Wednesday I was out in Portland, and I strictly chose not to dance with two followers who I used to dance with all the time because they made me feel uncomfortable, and they approached me afterwards at a social and would just flirt with me heavily and just like touch me in ways that I did not want to be touched. And so I said no because I just don't want to involve myself with that person. And I think obviously it happens more, I think, to females than it does males, more to followers than it does leads because of that power dynamic that you're talking about. Maybe what I think other people who are saying everybody should dance with everybody, that mentality is more like the intention should not be to solely dance with the same people every single time. I think the point of a social dance is to be open, at least, to considering dancing with whoever. But if things come across where, like, obviously you're being disrespected, your boundaries are not being your boundaries are not being considered, and you're just saying yes just to say yes, I think there's a problem with two things: with that person who's doing that to you, and your own boundaries and your own, guidelines per se of how you respect yourself. And I think that's a tough conversation. I think that's something that we really have to look inwards to as well as speak outwards to the community to be able to stop and nitpick, the things that are not welcome in dancing, which is sexual harassment, which is, battery, which is assault, which is, just unwanted solicitation of physical, involvement with somebody. I think that's the main thing that we should really be focusing on. But I do understand where you're coming from, where it's always a choice, isn't it? It's always a choice, and it's not always supposed to be not always supposed to be a no. So, but I'm glad you
Right.
brought that up. I respect your opinion. I
Yeah.
think there's some truth to that.
100%. Every invitation is a choice. Every invitation. And I would go further. I would say any reason, because we're saying, like, if boundaries have been crossed, I know what those boundaries are. I'm not this person. This person might have a boundary where this guy did XYZ. I can't question it, because then it's like a slippery slope. Like, where does that end? Outside, can that person also talk to you? If it's on the social dance floor, and then we have some kind of a license to engage anyone for dancing purposes, then that becomes a slippery slope in people's heads, where now they think, like, they will, quote, slide into your DMs or whatever. And so I'm all about allowing followers with impunity to say no for whatever reason. And then if we got a no, we have to be okay with it. You can't then have, like, go cry.
Yeah, it's you're
this
laughing.
person,
You're like,
this
yes.
person got, she said no. Hey, there's a reason, and whatever the reason is, you don't have standing to know what it is. You're not entitled to even know what it is. You're allowed to not know. She is entitled to say no for any reason. I don't care what it is. And it's happened to me. I'll go somewhere. It's like, oh, maybe my shirt is ugly. Like, who cares? Don't dwell on it. Move on. Be a big boy, or whatever, a big leader, and just move on and just invite the next person. When that happens to me, I forget who the person was. I literally forget her face immediately, and I'll just move on. Like, okay, no problem. Instead of, like, you see guys get crushed.
Yeah.
It's a challenge, but you need to look into yourself and not be that guy that gets hurt because a girl just said no.
Yeah, and I think I would even like play devil's advocate here, and on the opposite side as well, for anyone who identifies as whatever. If you're said no to, like, don't take it as a bad thing. Social dancing, that's what happens. Like, my shoulder's been crazy hurting for the last, however, like 2 months, and I've said no probably more times than I wanted to. But I explain, not that you have to explain yourself every time. I just do because I want people to think that it's not, anything bad, which I think is interesting that I'm working on, right? I don't need to explain myself. But for me, I personally say no because my shoulder, it literally is painful for me to hold my frame up. So I just don't dance. And so I say no. And I think that should be respected on all grounds. I think, again, that power dynamic is interesting because most invitations come out from leads, and I'm not trying to boast here, but a lot of times where I go social dancing, I'm probably the one being asked the most than I do the asking. Or maybe it's like a little bit frayed, or not frayed, but like unbalanced. It's 60%, 40, versus other nights that's 30, 70, But, I'm curious to hear your perspective, Yatz. What do you think on that topic? ¿Qué es tu opinión?
Para mí, decir no me da poder de decisión. Y yo me siento muy cómoda con una gran sonrisa de decirte no gracias si no siento que, o sea, si te he visto bailar antes y veo que que puede ser un poco peligroso bailar contigo,
Claro.
porque a veces me ha pasado que he bailado con personas y me han lastimado mi cuello, o tal vez si veo que es una persona que está tomando, que no se está realmente ahí por bailar, entonces yo felizmente le digo que no o paro el baile en el
Yep.
momento. Yo muy cómodamente digo, no, gracias, no podemos continuar.
Yep.
Y siento que es necesario y me gusta que cuando yo pueda bailar tenga la libertad de decidir con quién bailar. Porque es 3 minutos de mi vida que...
Precious. Every
Yeah.
second, man. Every second is precious.
y no tiene nada que ver con el nivel de baile. O sea, yo puedo tener danzas muy bonitas con personas que acaban de comenzar a aprender a bailar y no es en eso que se basa mi decisión. Muchas veces tiene que ver con safety y con la manera en que la persona se está comportando en el social.
Yep. I've legit heard her say, "Oh, I said no." He invited me. I smell liquor. Nope. So it's true, and I don't blame. I don't blame you.
Yeah, no, it's
why would you go onto the dance floor with someone who clearly is there for something else, drinking and being uncoordinated?
It's like getting in a car with a drunk driver.
Or a lot of my Ubers are unsafe, but I don't have a choice. I've never truncated
Philly.
a dance. I've never truncated a dance. But yeah, whatever the reason is, he or she always has reasons, but I would go further, just whatever. It could be just because, and that's enough. That's enough for me to say, no problem, I got you. I affirm that because we have to affirm that,
Yeah, otherwise we're going to be apologizing for anything, right? Which I think is a large part of society right now that's wrong. It's like you say sorry because you're conditioned to say sorry, but are you really sorry? No, you just don't want that, and it's okay to not be sorry. I think there's a book actually that's called The Art of Not Giving a Fuck, and that kind of talks, I think, on some chapter about saying sorry and it's too much, Pero me encantó lo que dijiste. I think it's very important for people to hear that. Can you guys talk about your experiences of the past that maybe not have been, the most delightful? And what I talk about really is these acts of harassment that you could probably lean into, and give maybe just some insight, some tips, some tricks for people who are scared of facing that, are facing that, have faced that, to gain control, to get power back into, their decision to say no. What are some tips and tricks that you can give?
For me, just by reading the person, the way they invite you, the way they start the dance. If you're someone who immediately grab me and start touching me my lower back or getting too close, and I don't see that you're doing any technique, which has happened to me. I've had leads who have touched, my lower back in a way that is inappropriate, and I've walked away from a dance. That's happened to me at least twice that I can think of. And I just do it on the spot. No, thank you. I'm not interested.
Awesome.
That. And...
Well, not awesome that it happened to you, but awesome that you're able to do that.
Right.
Yes.
Say that.
And I feel you, because of your frame, you could, if you wanted to, you can communicate to your lead how comfortable you are. If you don't feel comfortable getting close to somebody, if you have a strong frame, you can literally push them away.
Right hand on chest. That's how I train
You
all my
can
followers.
push them away.
Right hand on chest, frame and safety. Push them
And
away.
some guys will know that, okay, this is where we are and this is where we're dancing, and it's good. And the moment I feel like you're trying to pull me in and touch me, I'm like, no, thank you.
That's a license that has to be granted by the follower. It's like both people have to agree to kind of do whatever they're going to do. Their sensual basic, get into this sensual closer. It's not a given. And a lot of leaders, a lot of men, a lot of humans, but a lot of men who are leaders, most leaders are men, they have no clue. They're really poor at nonverbal communication. They can't read. They see something that is not there. And so, our followers will have to then kind of do this mental training where they have to be assertive. And so for me, I encourage them, right hand frame, that creates this little push, and you can just push away. But if the leader doesn't sense, and a lot of leaders can't, they just don't have abilities, they don't have skills in this department. But if they don't sense that she is comfortable with being close, there's a lot of indicators, looking away, doing her own styling, leaning away, then why are you trying to get close, bro? like get the fuck away. Like allow it to happen, allow her to grant you that license. And in my opinion, that is granted more easily with higher level dancing. You could look like anything. You could, in general, smell like anything. Maybe not. And then you grab a follow, and the higher your skill level, the more she'll be impressed at the outset of the dance. And then she'll be like, oh, okay, I think he has skills. He did a good little intro thing. He did a good little body thing at the beginning. And I will be more amenable to kind of engaging with whatever the leader might be looking for. But just grabbing a follow, just like that doesn't show any skill. That's just, let me clutch you and let me koala bear you and do this. And that doesn't feel like if I was a girl, I wouldn't feel comfortable with that. I would probably disengage too.
I mean, I wouldn't feel comfortable right now. Like anybody who did that, and that's happened,
Yeah, and I'm a New Yorker, so I'm really not comfortable with that. I'm not. Riding the 6 train all those years, not comfortable.
The other way I assess is the way they grab my hands.
Yes.
Sometimes people really grab you really
Clutch.
hard, and I'm like,
Clutch,
suave.
vice grip. Yeah.
Gentle.
Not fun.
I've said this so many times on
she's
the dance
broken.
floor.
Yeah.
Gentle.
Guys get crushed. They don't like the feedback, but she gives it, so that's good.
Yeah.
I always say gentle, and I've had people do it again, but gentle this time. Like if it's a head roll.
Yeah,
if it's a head roll or too fast.
I think you've actually said that to me, and I appreciate that because obviously I was just not thinking. Like it's what I appreciate about dancing with you, Yatz, is especially that is like it's accountability, and I think that happens with, the goal, right, is for both people to feel that, and both people to be able to communicate that. But it's interesting, and this is a segue into the next topic that I want to talk to you guys about, is that nonverbal communication. Already dance is so like, there's, loud music, it's a dark room, there's bright lights randomly that spotlight on you and you're blinded in a way you can't really see your follow. You guys aren't talking. So like there's so much room for error, I think, where again, people who are probably, beginning in dancing, they might want to hear from you guys. And my question to you is, what insight can you give for folks who are starting to dance? Your biggest, piece of advice to make sure that they have a good time, for one, and two, a safe time out when there's, social dancing, and be able to, maybe to add on is what is a good like social dancing etiquette thing that they can walk away with this podcast from? I know I stacked a lot right there.
Yeah. Okay, so beginners, I'll start with that. All right, for my leaders, I tell them that probably one of the most transformational things that happened to me in my journey early on, just months into, was learning how to move my body, just body rolling specifically, because I wasn't doing much with the feet, but just body rolling. A lot of leaders, the majority, don't move. They don't move. They don't move their hips. They don't move their bodies. They just step. And it's so easy if you kind of just do homework at home with a mirror and learn to wave a little bit better. It's not that hard, and that changes the texture of your dance. That allows you to have a more consensual dance. She'll feel more comfortable. If you're just stepping the whole time, then when I was a beginner, I was blocked. It's like, oh, you get categorized. You get that intro, the first few seconds where they're like evaluating you. And we do the same thing. We do a couple of rolls. Like, what can she do? Can she do a little head roll? Oh, okay. I see where she's at. Okay, now you go. Same thing happens to us. And when I was able to do a little bit of waving, just moving my own body, even a little bit, that changed me from getting lots of no's or just yucky faces at me to like, oh, smiles, And so that's why I tell my leaders, move your feet, learn to move your body before you start doing all these crazy patterns and all the YouTube videos with all these like that to me should come after you move your feet. You got to move your feet. If you have just one basic, you're a beginner. I don't care if you're like dancing 5 years. If you're doing one basic, you're a beginner. End of story. You need to have like multiple basics. And there's so many basics. And if you see the polished dancers, they all have multiple basics. Why do you think you're advanced if you have one basic? It doesn't make any sense. For my followers, for me, so I know that in different cities, you have like different tempos of dancing, and like the Latin American bachata style is very quick. But I find that the followers who are able to follow tempo or like velocity, like these vectors of like a slow head roll, like for example, you'll prompt a follow to do a head roll, and then she goes, and then she's ahead of you. So now you know that she's gonna go ahead of you because that's what she's trained to do. Like in Philly, like head roll, whiplash, like a karate, whiplash head roll on one count. And I like to train my followers to be able to kind of follow what he's actually intending on doing.
Right.
You know, so if you're going to do a slow 4-count head roll, follow it. That changes what you're able to do. And that changes what you're doing with every leader. And you're going to go to events now and see, holy crap, this guy did this guy did that. Because as a follower, you're dancing all styles. You know, every leader has 8 moves that he does on the dance floor. Every song, 8 moves. Watch him with the next follower, 8 moves. Next follower, 8 moves.
Why you got to call us out like that, Joe?
8 moves, 8 moves. We all have it. Yeah.
No, this man's telling lies over here.
I got the videos, bro. I got the videos. But for the followers, like, oh, I know his repertoire. I've heard this. Like, I know his repertoire. I know his 8 moves. Yeah. And then they are following everything. They're following the sensual guys, the guys who move their bodies. They're following the karate, you know, and they're following like the Dominican guys. They're following everything, like the urban guys. And that, to me, that ability of following, you know, while you're on that journey as a follower, I think you should start styling a little bit. But then after you've become a pretty good follower, you're following tempo, you're following, you know, like that's why these Wi-Fi exercises are good. Then you can really explore this journey of super extra styling, moving your hips. That's what makes you colorful. That's what makes, in my opinion, the dance way more enjoyable, you know.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. I love that advice. I think that's it's the first time somebody on this podcast has said something like that, so I appreciate you.
Cool. Which part?
Almost all of that.
Yeah.
¿Y tú, Yatz, tienes algo para decir? Or in English, whatever you want.
Bueno, yo...
You have the decision, always.
Yeah.
Sí. Yo digo que tener la valentía de decir sí cuando quieres y decir no, eso da mucha libertad. Te da mucha libertad y vas a poder disfrutar mejor el social. Y yo digo que también estar pendientes, be aware of your surroundings, you know, be aware of what's happening on the floor. How is this person relating to other follows before they dance with you, you know, and that will also help you keep you a little safer, you know, if you're paying attention to what's happening around you. And communicating why you don't like something, just say it, or and vice versa. When you like something, also you can just say it so that it's kind of balanced. Because that's what I usually do. You know, if somebody does something really nice, I compliment them. But if something doesn't feel good, I say not just for me, but also with the other followers in mind.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. Can we get a buzzer sound on that? Because that was some knowledge right there. Thank you. No, that's both of you guys have shared so many great insights here. I think, you know, from beginner to all the way advanced and people who have just been dancing for so long, I think it's interesting to try to be mindful about these things. It's just time passes by, you're in the energy, you're in the mood, you're just like kind of going there to just vibe in a way. And it's almost very easy to forget. So it's very, hopefully, you know, warming for whoever's listening, whoever's watching. Maybe you're on the way to the social. To put these practices in the mind, I think it's very, very interesting. Let's start to kind of wrap this up a little bit, but, you know, can you explain Sensual City and kind of the come up of that, what you guys do, and, you know, what you're looking to do with Sensual City?
Sure. So I created the group. I guess I had a gym in Manayunk back in 2014, 15, 16, and I started dancing bachata in 2015, summer of 2015. So by 2016, I was like still like an advanced beginner, and I somehow just felt like I was into making contacts. So I contacted people like David, DJ Trunky, and I was just becoming friends. And he was kind of early in his journey of DJing, of like remixing, and so my gym had a group room, a pretty big group room. So I started to do a couple of socials there. I even tried to help with the Zouk scene back then. It was really hard because the Zouk scene was even tinier than it is now. But so the idea was, okay. The dancing that I was into existed. It was good in DC. It was pretty good in New York. It wasn't that good here. And by good, it was like there were fewer dancers. There were few who even knew who DJ Trunky was. I was shocked because I was like on my YouTube, like DJ Trunky all the time. And when I had my social, it was like poorly attended. This was like 2016 maybe. And so I just immediately started, a group. I called it something. I called it like Bachata and something Philly. Now it's called Sensual City, I think, or Fusion and Central Bachata Philly. I think that's what it's called. That's the group. There's also a page which I updated the name to Sensual City like, I don't know, 5-6 years ago. And the idea was just to kind of create an answer for what the people in DC are doing, like the work of Kat and the work of Anna Sim in New York, and just kind of create more of an even ground here in Philly. One of my first events I ever went to was Daniel and Desiree at Cat's event, Cat Arias from Ferocity in 2015. And that was one of the first few times we were in the States. And they're there at DC. And then when I look back at the video, I see Anna Sim, who started Sensual Movement in New York. There we all were, like beginners. She was a beginner. I was a beginner. I was like a complete beginner that I left. I didn't stay for the social. I was like, I'm not qualified to dance here. So I left. These other guys are already doing the body rolls and stuff. And I'm like, can't do shit. I can do this. So I legit left. I went, like I paid for this workshop over my head, took pictures, left. I drove home, like I drove from DC back to Philly. And so I was like, all right. But like stuff gets in the way. I sold that gym, so I stopped doing it. And then COVID, so 3 years later after COVID, only last year, I restarted the studio. And the idea is to just bolster the scene with competent dancing, like competent, skilled dancing that creates dancers who have all these attributes, like welcoming, competence number one, but welcoming, congenial, like all these positive attributes where I don't want people slamming each other. I am really, I'm a person who will out guys. Like I've done it. I've had fights. You can Google it, or no, you can search on Facebook.
Is it on,
I've done it.
World Stars?
I've done it. If someone, even like substantiated accusations of like assault and whatever, I share that shit. And so I'm very big on protecting our followers because they're preyed upon. People come in for that reason. And, just sort of very proactive, like from years ago, from like back then, I started immediately. Some people view that as like, oh, drama. But I'm sorry, but conflict is drama. But if you're defending against a conflict, how's that drama? I'm not creating the drama, I'm defending. That's not drama. That's me responding because I have a sense of self-respect and respect for the people around me, like my followers. But that was the idea, just sort of like create the group. And I was doing these practice sessions at Drexel like 6 years ago. And then that turned into some boot camps that I was doing, creating some dancers, a bunch of privates that I taught. My first private ever was Daniel and Desiree. At that same year, 2015, they did New Jersey BKS back when it was still done. They were there, and I was at a table in the restaurant of the Hotel ML, and I was sitting with this guy, and I was like, oh, who are those people? They look like stars. They're like wearing wife beaters, and like they just look like pop stars. And I was like, oh, that's Daniel and Desiree. Oh, and then it's like, I was like, oh, I wonder if they teach or something like that. And then he was like, why don't you ask them? So I went over, and I was like, can you guys do your private? They're like, oh, sorry, we don't do, sorry, we're like, booked or something. I sat down. My friend was like, did you make an offer? So I didn't. So I went over. I was like, $300, pero una hora. Next day, he's like, met at the elevator. We went into their suite and we did a lesson. Literally, Daniel Desiree had his hands on my chest. He was like, in, out, just teaching me, just rolling. This is 2015. And this was their groundwork of like, body roll. Oh, I must do. And then like I did a bunch of privates with them. I would see them at festivals and they stopped, they stopped coming in after 2018 or 19, I think. But, like you have to invest. Like it's a hobby, but it's a hobby that, we should consider investing money in. Like money is our currency, put some money into it. It's an important, awesome hobby that you do for whatever reason you have for doing it, connecting, passing time. And, that's why I like to I have practice sessions that I do at the studio now. We've done a couple of events. We had like Corky and Judith come recently. And we have another weekend during a week and then another one in July. And this is designed to kind of build the scene. And we've seen you a bunch of times, so thank you for stopping by. Appreciate that. So that's the goal. Just sort of like create the group and create a central focus because Philly doesn't have a central focus. Philly has like a lot of mixed studios. And then a lot of the studios don't necessarily value bringing in the Spaniards, bringing in like the people from España and doing like the Spanish European style. And that's what I got into. And that's what I want to bolster and like, augment here in Philly. That's the goal.
Awesome. That's cool. Well, I'm very excited to be able to continue supporting you guys. The events that you guys throw are fun. And I love that music. Again, I have a deep connection with the EDM because I came and I had a background in it. So, I'm very excited for more events that you guys are coming with. How can people find you online so that they can follow to see what you guys are up to? If you guys are open to sharing that, how can people find you?
Yeah.
Right. The Instagram, Sensual_City_Philly, Sensual City Philly. There's underscores in between.
Got it.
On the Instagram.
Instagram.
Yep.
And do you guys want to share your personal ones or no?
Oh, I don't have an Instagram.
Oh, you don't have. That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Mine is at Yatz.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, yes.
awesome. And any last thoughts or shout outs that you guys want to give?
The screen printing guy, it's NMR. Is it NMR?
Yes. No.
NMR?
Never regret, never recommend. NR. That's
NR
that's
screen
my
printing,
boy. Yeah, that's
Oh, good.
Damien. He's
Yes. All right.
I like
So
this.
he gets a shout out.
Yeah, straight up shout out that man, and I'm gonna tag him in
yeah.
this because you are man of the hour, man. I respect you heavily. Yeah,
yeah.
he's I used to work with him, and he's he's a good guy.
Yep. And
Sorry,
then,
I just stole that.
Oh no,
Sorry.
all good, all good. Like you remember the name. I was gonna say NMR, or NPR, and just sort of like the artists that we appreciate. Like the Daniel Desiree style, although it's a little bit different from the other like Corky Judas styles. But I embrace their styles in general. Like the European styles, I think are important. And then I did so many privates that I don't even want to shout out. Just like there were so many.
Everyone.
But yeah.
Awesome. What about you, Yatz? Anything?
Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to seeing more of your episodes because this is a very fun podcast. So
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for showing up. And with that, I conclude the ending of this podcast episode. Thank you guys for showing up. Really, I really appreciate you guys' not only your time, but again, your energy on the dance floor, in the community, and what you guys are doing. So thank you once again. And of course, guys, as always, if you see us out dancing, save us a dance. Let's go.